Tom Cruise is adored by movie fans around the world. Many people know that his real name isn't Tom Cruise, but what most people don't know is that even his real name isn't what his real name should be. And those who have told this story have gotten it wrong. It's a family tree full of twists and turns. But this is not an impossible mission. Let's crack this case. Tom Cruise was born Thomas Cruz Mapother IV in 1962 in Syracuse, New York, the son of Thomas Cruz Mapother III and Mary Lee Pfeiffer. His parents separated when he was in 6th grade. Early in his acting career, he began using Tom Cruise as his stage name, partly because Tom Cruise just sounds like an actor's name, and partly to distance himself from his father. As you might have guessed, Thomas Cruz Mapother III was the son of Thomas Cruz Mapother Jr., and Thomas Jr. was the son of Thomas Cruz Mapother Sr. Or was he? This is where the family tree hits a snag and a ton of misinformation comes in. Some websites, including the Hollywood Walk of Fame, tell a fascinating tale that Tom Cruise's surname originates from his great-grandfather Thomas Cruz O'Mara, who was adopted by a Welsh immigrant and renamed Thomas Cruz Mapother. It's a nice story, but it isn't true. Like a lot of stories, there is a kernel of truth, but there is so much more. Here's what really happened. Tom Cruise's great-grandfather, the first Thomas Cruz Mapother, was born on December 29, 1876 in Louisville, Kentucky. He married Anna Batman. Now, just an aside, it seems like a real missed opportunity that Tom Cruise did not star in a Batman movie. Just saying. Thomas Mapother was an attorney and became a judge in Louisville. Neither his death certificate nor his marriage record list his parents. So how do we know who he is? Well, records of other Mapothers in the area help put the family together. The obituary of Henry Hart Mapother lists Judge Thomas C. Mapother as his brother and lists two other brothers, Dillon E. and W. L. Mapother, and it lists their father as Dillon H. Mapother. Let's put this family together. Dillon Mapother married Mary Pauline Cruz in the cathedral at Detroit, Michigan in 1858. By 1860, they had settled in Louisville, Kentucky. Dillon died in August 1874 and is buried at St. Louis Cemetery in Louisville. Mary Cruz Mapother, the widow, married Thomas O'Mara on February 28, 1876 in Louisville. The 1880 census shows Thomas and Mary living in Louisville along with their 3-year-old son, Thomas O'Mara. Also in the household are the 3 Mapother sons from Mary's first marriage. So there's the O'Mara name that popped up in the story. But why would little Thomas O'Mara start using Mapother as a last name when there's no possible way that Mary's first husband, Dillon Mapother, was Thomas's father? After all, Dillon had died 2 years before Thomas was even born. Is this even the same person? After all, Judge Mapother was listed as a brother to Henry and Dillon and Weibel Mapother. Do we know that Thomas O'Mara and Judge Thomas Mapother are the same person? Fortunately, Judge Thomas Mapother wanted to travel outside the United States in 1924 and had to apply for a passport. On the application, he stated that his father was Thomas O'Mara. I would be remiss if I didn't point out 2 other things on this passport application. First, the fact that it has a photo of Thomas Mapother and his wife Anna. Second, his physical description, including the fact that he was 5'5". I present that fact without comment. The passport establishes that Judge Thomas Mapother is the same as the 3-year-old Thomas O'Mara in the 1880 census. But it doesn't answer why he stopped using the O'Mara name. And why would he use the last name of a man who died before he was even born? To see what happened, we need to go back to the marriage of Thomas O'Mara and Mary Pauline Cruz Mapother. They were married in February 1876, and Thomas was born in December of that year. The O'Maras and the Mapother boys were living together on Walnut Street in Louisville. The 1881 city directory shows them still living in the same house. But by 1883, something had changed. Thomas O'Mara is no longer in the picture. Dylan and Harry Mapother are living at 2302 West Chestnut. Also living there is Mary P. Mapother. The next year, the city directory shows Dylan and Henry living at 2306 West Chestnut. Also living there is Mary P. Mapother, listed as widow of Dylan H. So what happened to Thomas O'Mara, Mary's second husband? Well, it would be easy to assume that he died, but that isn't what happened. In February 1881, Thomas and Mary divorced. Yes, divorces happened back then too. Thomas was ordered to pay Mary $10 a week. That would be about $300 today. It doesn't appear to have been a very amicable divorce. Louisville newspapers carried legal notices for the next several months with claims, counterclaims, and adjustments to the settlement. So why did little Thomas start using the Mapother name? Was it a matter of convenience? In the 1800s and even the early 1900s, a person's name could be pretty fluid. It was common for children in blended families to take on the surname of the stepfather, and people could change what name they used pretty much at will. But this case was a lot more than that. After the divorce, Mary went back to using the Mapother name and identified herself as the widow of Dylan H. Mapother. She pretty much wrote Thomas O'Mara out of her life. Little Thomas was still a minor at this point. Mary could have just started calling him Thomas Mapother to make his name match the rest of the family's. But Mary took it a step further. In 1889, Mary went to court in Louisville and explained that Thomas was the son of Thomas O'Mara and that she and Thomas were divorced, and she had been restored to her name of Mary Mapother. Mary then went on to say that Thomas, her ex-husband, quote, abandoned him, little Thomas, some years ago and has failed to provide for his support and education. Mary also said that little Thomas has been known as Thomas Mapother for the past 8 years, which would be the time of the divorce. Mary didn't have to take this legal action, but it seems like she wanted every trace of her ex-husband erased. So much so that she actually went to court to legally change her son's name. Mary Cruz Mapother died in Louisville on December 31st, 1891. In her obituary, she's described as the widow of Dylan H. Mapother. Even in death, she and her family erased her ex-husband. Thomas O'Mara, the ex-husband, died in 1905, spending the winter in San Antonio, Texas. The administrator of his estate recognized Thomas Mapother as an heir, but it's unclear if he actually received anything from the estate. As for Thomas O'Mara, who became Thomas Mapother, other than the passport application, he doesn't seem to name his biological father in any of his records. Names can definitely trip you up in your research, especially when you have more than one person with the same name. That was the situation I was in researching a Civil War soldier. Check out this video to see how I sorted it all out so that the right man could be remembered for his service.